section. So let's start joining as we go live in today's interesting and wonderful section. Please and please, if you're just joining us for the first time, you're welcome to today's interesting section. So let's start joining as we go live into this. So that we're looking at today's market. What is the market currently saying? What is a prediction about the market? What's the market currently saying? We will also be looking into that. And also we will going ahead to check also about the news about the US, looking at the US and stuff, looking at how the US in the course of today's section. So waiting for others that are yet to connect live with us, waiting for others that are yet to connect live with us so that we can show you online and you're ready to go live with us as we move ahead in the course of today's interesting section. So first of all, we'll look and that was the first point we will be looking at in the course of this section. And after that, after we look at the course of that, we'll go ahead to look at the US themselves, looking at the United States, what has been their view concerning the market, what is self-custodian in crypto, what do we know as self-custodian in crypto, and also we're looking at different points. We'll also be talking about the US House Financial Committee move to keep coin out in the move to protect crypto investors of self custodian rights. We'll also be looking at that, and also be looking at the congressman, the SEC, what has been and also what is behind the keeping the coin art and order. So all those points are interesting conversation that we will be looking at in the course of today's interesting section. So please, if you're ready to join us live, let's know in the chat box so that we can go live in today's interesting section. Please, if you're yet to follow our profile and you're listening to us, welcome everyone. If you're here to follow our profile and you are listening to us, please kindly do follow our profile so that whenever we are live, we be live. We will have a very interesting section as we move ahead in the course of today's section. So welcome everyone as we begin today's interesting and wonderful section. So the first thing that I want us to look at in the course of what is the first point that is very, very important that we need to look at when looking at the market analysis. Now you see the market based on the market analysis. We have the market around this area. Currently the market is around 25,768. That is what the market is. That is what, based on looking at the market movement, that is what we have here in the market movement and order. Well, it was actually predicted. If you notice, I drew this line yesterday and I actually expected the market to come. This line I drew here, you can see it has actually touched it, and even though it has superseded, it's the wind is around 25,200 thereabouts. Why this place here, why the body stopped at this area here, 25,600 and thereabouts. So right now let's come up to this area, and so what is the next act, or what is the next movement when looking at the market, when looking at what the market is saying? How can we actually go about it? It is very, very important that we understand some basic points. Some basic factors are actually very, very important that we need to actually focus on when looking at the market, when looking at the movement of the market. What is the market currently saying? How can we actually take control? We taking control of the market is really very, very important. It's really very important when talking about the market and all that. We understanding, okay, this is the area in which the market is moving. This is the area in which we can actually take control of the market. Is actually one important factor that we must consider when looking at the market and other. All these are actually important. Now, you notice that based on what we had in the market, you can see the market actually is actually down. The market has actually down up to like it's called currently the market is around 25,769 and all that. Well, it's actually good. It was actually predicted, and even though this down has actually been down three consecutive day. If you notice, yesterday it has been down, the market has been moving from one direction to another when looking at the market space, and it's actually a good sign when looking at the market and all that. And even though looking at yesterday, looking at the approval of approval of the sports Bitcoin ETF in the US is actually in the inevitable claim by the ex-sec chairman, despite the lay of the market and all those points are actually one of the factors that we need to look at when looking at the movement of the market. What is the market really saying and all that? And also for example, the former SEC chairman, the former SEC chairman also said that the approval of the sports Bitcoin exchange traders fund is inevitable, despite the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission postponed decision on several ETF proposals for 45 days and all that. So they're actually saying that okay, this spot exchange trader fund is actually ETF. It's actually inevitable. It doesn't matter what the US say propose and this, and even though a lot of people have actually been investing into the ecosystem, and when talking about investment and also because large Bitcoin holder accumulates almost 1.1 billion worth of Bitcoin and other as the price wavers and other. Now, if you look at the market from this area here, you will notice that the market has actually been waving. It has actually been moving from one direction to the other when looking at the market and other. You can see the market. Now, let me bring this out. Let's get a better view about the market. Now you can see this area here. You can see the movement of the market, and this area here, you can see this. We don't actually have much here, but looking at this area here, look at the market area here, you can see it doesn't come up to this area here around 200 thereabouts. That no, not 200, 168. And while looking at the minus sign, here about in the market. So all this actually gives you direction about what is actually happening in the market, how you can actually take control of the market, which is one important factor. And you can see this is currently doing now. The relative strength index is currently below 50 when looking at the market. So there's not actually much liquidity when looking at the market, because what actually pushes the market up is actually liquidity, and so there's a lot of factors that is actually affecting the way the market is going and all that. And you notice this move that we noticed there was actually after the court actually gave approval and all that. That was when this move the court and the Bitcoin, it actually won their case in the court. That was what actually caused this move and but right now they are yet to actually fully assess. There's actually a lot of regulation, a lot of things actually coming on board when looking at the market and all that, which actually is still causing this push that we are noticing in the market, which is one important factor that we need to take note of when looking at the market space. What is the now the large Bitcoin investors in terms of seem to underrate the kind of understand the kind of by the recent weakness of price and sustainability increase their holdings when looking at the market space, or when looking at the movement of the market. What is the market I'm really talking about now? Data by crypto analyst firm has actually shown that at least 0.1% of the market of people actually coming on board and order 0.1% of the Bitcoin supply worth more than $500 million. Now just imagine 0.1% percent of Bitcoin supply actually worth more. It's actually worth more than $500 million and thereabouts in the market space, which is now we actually say, okay, is it a good sign when looking at the market? Is it a good from here? That's true. How strong the Bitcoin market is, what they've been building so far, how strong they are when looking at the market, and all these factors are actually very, very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market and all that. And also all these factors we're actually talking about are actually important conversation that we need to take note of when looking at the market, when looking at okay, how the market is going, what are the important factors we need to consider when looking at the market, and all these factors are actually very, very important that we need to take note of when understanding when looking at the market and all that. Now apart from this, again, what other news, what other things that we need? Now you can see, even though you can see the Bitcoin, you can see the Ether, you can see the Ripple slide as the it's actually on a slide as the kind of as a sec delayed decision on spot. for the applicants, including BlackRock and others. So there is actually a kind of a decision now. The news actually has a kind of a big factor to play when looking at the market space, or when looking at all that now, because of right now even they won the case in court. Looking at the Bitcoin, looking at Ether, looking at Ripples and all that, they actually on the slide as a second. The SEC has actually delayed in the market prediction, and we want the market to actually go another. All these factors are what is actually causing the movement of the market, or how the market is moving, and all those factors are actually go about the market. It is very, very important that we understand all those points when looking at the market, or when trying to get a way out on what the market is saying. How can we actually take control of the market? All these points are actually very, very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market. And also, what other information do we have in the market? Now, looking at the Bitcoin market currently, you can see the Bitcoin price is actually plugged below 26,000 thereabouts, as optimism around approval of the Bitcoin spot trader was again postponed and other. So now the reason why you can see that there's lots of sentiment concerning the marketing. So if they actually approve this Bitcoin, this spot Bitcoin exchange funded funds and other, you can see the market is actually going to push and other. So we are actually waiting for this push that we actually expect. And also the US SEC Commission, the exchange, and it's a push of decision for 7 ETF by 45 days, and citing the need for more time to review the application and other. So all these points, and they're yet to actually make come on board to give their prediction or their view, or to make a kind of say, okay, maybe it's approved or not and other. So all this are actually being important. So all these are actually an important point that we need to take note of when looking at the market, and when looking at. And also, currently, what we see in the market now, is it that are we actually going to see the market moving down up to 23 in the market? Now, looking at where the market is looking at where the market is currently, we are likely still going to see the market coming down up to 23 in the market. Let me push it down here. Let's see. Now, looking at where the market is currently, so are we still likely going to see 23 in the market as the day goes by? And all these points are actually very, very important. We need to take note of all these factors when looking at the market movement, looking at how the market is moving. What are the various factors we need to consider when looking at the market? Is very, very important that we understand all those factors when talking about the market space. What is wrong with the market? How can we actually take control of the market? And other, all those factors are actually very, very important that we need to actually take note of when studying the market and other. Now, looking at this area here, looking at the market from this area here. Now, this is actually in a daytime frame. Now, looking at it in a daytime frame, let's say, okay, the market comes down up to this area here, which is around 23. Let's say the market comes down up to this area here. So there's another view again in the market. So the market coming down up to this area also in the market is also one point we need to take note of when looking at the market. So all these points are actually very, very important. All those factors here are actually very, very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market and all that. It is very, very important that we understand all those factors here when looking at the market, how the market is moving, and all this area here are actually very, very important. Now looking at this side here, bring this out again, trying to get another different view. So looking at this now, this is a better view. We have a better view in this area here. Now looking at the markets here, now what is our view? Now if it's, let's draw this line here, you can see this line here as a low 19. Well, I didn't see it actually coming down to 19. It might not get to 19 thereabouts. And all that. Now looking at this area here, look, this area is around 24. Looking at this area here, low here again. And also what other high, you can see this, we still have a high here again in the market. You can see this area here again in the market. Looking at this area here. So I'm still expecting this stuff here to come down here, to come down up to this area here in the market. So looking at the markets here, looking at what is actually happening in the markets here. So if it actually comes down, let me bring this out again. Let me bring this out. So from this area, from this push, let me just bring it here to this area. You have this area here. You have this area here, which serves as a low. It came here again. You can see another move here again. Let me draw this again. It came here from this area we had here. Now it came up to this area here. It's created another low here. It came up here. It's created another low here again in the market. Okay, let's push it again. Let's push it. So from this area again, it came up here. Now you can see the lows, another low it created here again. Now it came up to this area here. Now it moves to this area here. It's moved to this area here. Now actually still going to see it's moving. Now is it our prediction still moving here again? Now okay, we'll see some movement pushing up a little bit, then still coming down. Still coming down here. You can see, you will see a play here, moving here a little, coming here, you see a little bit here. Now touching this line here. So I'm actually expecting it to move up to this area here in the market. I know that we're actually expecting to move up to this area here in the market. So all these are actually very, very important points that we need to understand. So still it's coming to actually coming to around this area here, 23 thereabouts in the market, 3,000 thereabouts in the market. We might likely going to see that happening in coming weeks to come. So coming down here up to 23 in the market is actually something that we are likely going to see in coming days to come. So we understand all these factors moving, all this movement of the factor are actually very, very important. And now looking at this news, if SEC was actually, if we actually actually see an approval from SEC, you're actually going to see that the market is actually going to push up significantly. You're actually going to see the impact of the market in coming days to come. So all this are actually very, very important. We need to understand all these factors are actually very, very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market, or when trying to understand what the market is saying. How can we actually take control of the market? And that is very, very important. Now you can see this recent decline has actually risen a lot of concern in the market as the largest cryptocurrency struggle to maintain a long, a kind of an upward momentum. Another now, this movement that we can see, this movement has actually risen a lot of doubt. A lot of people have actually said that, oh, what is actually happening in the market? Why is the market acting this way? And what is the movement? What is the reason behind this movement of the market? So a lot of people have actually given their own different view about what is actually happening in the market. Why is the market going the way it's going? And a lot of people have actually given different views about the market, and a lot of people are actually I'm scared. A lot of concern has come has been around about, okay, what is wrong with the market? Why is the market moving in this so direction? What is actually causing this and other? Well, is one factor I actually understand is the news factor. The news factors is one factor that is actually that's actually giving the effect for this market and delay by the approval of the spot, approval of the Bitcoin, approval of the and also the approval of the Bitcoin, the spot Bitcoin trade, exchange trade for that is ETF by the US Securities, that is the SEC, US and exchange coming, and the doubts that we're actually seeing in the mind of a larger role to play when looking at the market, when looking at how the market is moving, and that all these are actually important points. All these take control of the market when looking at it. All those factors are actually very, very important that we need to actually take note of when looking at the market, when looking at how we can actually control the market, and that is very, very important that we understand all this facts. Now, if they can actually have a kind of, if the news is actually going to be positive when looking at the SEC, and that you actually see significant impact in the market. So how the areas in which the market is going to move to, how the market is actually going to move, and that all these are actually prediction or areas that we need to consider, we need to take note of when looking at the market, or when trying to get a way out on what the market is saying. How can we actually adequately take control of the market when looking at it on the real sense? And that it is very, very important. It is very, very important that we understand all those factors when looking at the market, or when trying to get a way out on what the market is saying. And that all those factors are actually very, very important that we must take note of. Now, one other factors that we can actually, now you can remember I said that the SEC also has a factor to play when looking at the market. SEC and other the market, the SEC also has a very, very, now the approval, now the delay, one of the factors is the delay of this the delay of the approval of this SEC this ETF. Now, if they are actually, if we notice, if this approval is actually say a bullish in the market, actually is actually those factors are actually the market is saying. And also in adding to the bearish outlook of the analysis, we suggest that the strong support is below 25,400. Now, looking at the analysis of the market, where the area of the market, at the market area here, this area, the strong support is just below 25,400 when looking at the market, and all these points are actually point that we need to understand. All these areas are actually very, very important that we need to understand when talking about the market. How can we actually take control of the market? What is the market really all about? And like the week has actually show it here. The week is around this area here. There is 25,400 in the market and all that. So all this actually very, very important factor that we must consider, that we must really take control of the market, and that it is very, very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market, or when trying to get a way out on how the market is going, and all that. It is very, very important that we understand all these factors. Important that we need to also take note of when looking at the market movement is that now you can see about, however, the volatility market itself is still very uncertain, because immediately the fact that we're saying, okay, we're actually expecting the market to actually come down based on the, or based on my analysis here, we're actually uncertain because news factor actually has a kind of a big role to play when looking at the market. So if the news is actually favorable, or if we actually have a very strong, if the news area and other in the, what is the market saying, how can we actually take on getting what I'm actually dishing out in today's section. Please and please, if you have any question, you can type it on the chat box as we move ahead in the course of today's section. If you have any question, you can kindly ask on the chat box as we move ahead in the course of today's section. If you have any question whatsoever, you can ask on the chat box as we keep moving forward in the course of today's session. If you have any question whatsoever, you can ask on the chat box as we move ahead in the course of today's session. So all these actually important factor that we need to take note of when looking at the market, when looking at what the market is saying. How can we actually take control of the market? What do we need to understand when looking at the market movement, looking at the areas and order? Now let's go ahead. Now we've talked about the news factor, the analysis about the Bitcoin market, what the market is saying. How can we actually take control of the market? And let's go ahead and look at, let's also go ahead and look at another factor. And let's look at the US, the self-custodian, and then let's go ahead to look at the self-custodian when looking at the market and other. Let's go ahead to look into that as we move ahead. Move to keep your coin out in the move out into to protect your crypto, to protect crypto investors, self-custodian right and other. Now Twitter to shared in on July 27 as that's the as the US House of Representatives Committee on the Financial Service approved a suite of crypto-friendly legislation, now including congressmen and other keep your coin apps and other. If it pass, they could actually protect crypto investors right to self-custody their digital assets within self-host wallets and other. Now to understand this arts or significance and other, let's take a quick look of what we understand by self-custody, and also the background of, now what do we understand by self-custody in crypto. What do we understand by self-custody when talking about crypto, and what is our understanding about what self-custody is actually really all about when looking at the crypto markets and other. Now when talking about self-custody is a cryptocurrency in cryptocurrencies refers to as personal, is actually referred to as personal. It's actually self-custody. It's actually in cryptocurrency. It refers to as personal managing and securing your crypto assets. Now that means you are the one in charge of your crypto assets. You don't need any. You are it's not controlled by the government. It's not controlled by any external body. You are the one fully in charge of your crypto wallet. And that is one point. That is what self-custody in crypto is actually really all about. Self-custody, I'll repeat that explanation again. Self-custody in crypto refers to as a personal managing and securing your crypto assets in the crypto markets and other. That is what we need to understand when talking about self-custody. So self-custody in cryptocurrency refers to as personally managing and securing your crypto assets and other. Now the most common self-custody formats in cryptocurrency wallets sometimes is called non-custodian wallets. MetaMask is a form of a popular example of that. Now self-custody means that you have complete control over your private key, manage your assets directly, and there's no party coming on board to be in control of your finance. You are the one in charge of your finance. That is one point when talking about self-custody, on what self-custody is actually really all about. That is one point that we need to take note of when looking at the market, and what are we actually to. All these factors are actually very, very important that we need to talk about when looking at the market, and all these factors are actually very, very important that we need to get is saying, trying to get control about what the market can self-custodian. And these are all these actually important information that we actually need to take note of when looking at what self-custodian is actually really about. So set, that is what self-custody is really all about in cryptocurrency. And apart from that, the most common self-custody format in means you have complete control over your private key and also manage your assets directly. And apart from you having complete control over your finance and all that, you also your private key and you also authentic key. That private key is actually a cryptographic key that allows you to access and control your crypto holding on the blockchain. Now, private key are cryptographic key that allows you to access and also control your crypto holding, control your cryptocurrency holding on a blockchain when looking at the ecosystem and all that. Now, direct control of your key comes with benefit and responsibility. Now, you feel attached to it and all that, because now there's no external body coming on board to be indirect. So that's what they're actually trying to pass into law in the US and all that. Now, the prominence of this self custody is said to have to give investors more security, independent privacy, true and direct ownership. Now, self custody wallets include hard wallets, soft wallets, paper wallet. Soft wallets are the most common when looking at the ecosystem, and that one level of security when looking at it, has its own level of convenience when looking at the ecosystem. And so it is very important to note that while self-custody offer kind of significant benefit. Now, why? Because now looking at the software, it actually offers a lot of significant benefits. It may not be suitable for everyone. Why some users may prefer convenience or may prefer the more convenient and friendly natural of custodian wallet or exchange, like our platform, for example, or even the means to distinguish some degree of control when looking at the market space and others. So what the alternative for self-custodian seals crypto users rely on third-party service like exchange or self-custodian wallet to hold or manage their digital assets. Now, ultimately, the choice between self-custody and also looking at the effects of well, me, for example, I actually use this platform to actually in my transaction to save and order, which is one important factor. But you have to understand that before you actually say, okay, I want to make use of the self-custody, I want to go into self-custody or looking at custodian services like exchange and order. Now, before looking at that, there's one important factor you must consider. Now, you have to know how to personally manage. If you are going for the self-custody, you have to understand how to manage your private key. You need technical expertise. You need risk tolerance. Now, how to manage your risks, how to actually what is the risk factor in actually going into the market. All these factors are actually very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market or when trying to talk about what is actually happening in the market. What are the different factors that we need to consider when looking at the market, and that is very important that we understand, that we take note of all those factors when talking about the market or when trying to get a way out on the market, and that all these factors are actually very important that we must actually take note of. Now, looking at financial or federal services to impose restriction on crypto self custody. Now, why there has been some partial support on the specified bills, given the probabilities is grouping along pattern line. Now, those that support the SEC oversight of crypto firm and prioritized customer protection are main US, and legislation opposed to crypto self custody and custody claim as that's the security risks of money laundering and other criminal activities outweighs the individual right of self-custody when looking at the market and others. So those who oppose the SEC and favor free market and individual rights approach the crypto legislation are mainly Republican. We're looking at, so it's actually the Republican versus Democrats in the US when talking about the acceptance of this self custody and other. Now the keep your coin at is partially the response of the is actually the especially the response in response to FTX exchange meltdown, where thousands of investors lost approximately around $7 billion USD when looking at the market. So almost $7 billion was actually lost when looking at the market and other, which actually caused custody wallets and other, which is one important factor that we now advocate of self-custody says it is very crucial for certain to certain the right of self-custody for investors who want to avoid exchange or immigrate the risks of fraud and hijack in the ecosystem and other. So all these are actually very, very important that we need to take note of when talking about the need of clarification and verification by the entire US House to pass on to the Senate. If it passes approval of the Senate, it becomes law and order. So crypto advocacy was removing regulation on certain around cryptocurrency and other. So all these points are actually very, very important that we need to take note of when talking about the ecosystem. What are they really all about and other? All these factors are actually very, very important that we need to take note of when looking at the ecosystem. What are they really all about? How can we actually take control of them? And so let's go back to look at the market. That is that when talking about self-custody wallet, what are they really all about? Let's go back to guys are actually enjoying today's session, getting what I'm actually dishing out to you guys in the course of today's session. And you can see lots of projects, you can see them, they're actually red, showing their so if you put it in the weekly time frame, it's also red. Put it in the month time frame, is madly red. And as you can see, even though the little push that we notice in the market, it actually still makes the market is actually still red, but it makes it fair, unlike the way it was before. And all these points are now looking at it in the hourly time frame. In the hourly time frame, you can see 0.010, most of them 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, 0.4, 1, 0.7 and all that. So all this is just in the hourly time frame and all that. There's actually a little bit of liquidity in the market that you can see in the hourly time frame, but to make it what is actually fair, that is where you can see time frame. You can see the real this, you can see Pepe is actually minus. So most of the coin are actually there, yet it's just few, like it's just this, like this has actually recovered and especially this actually you can see Ron also actually did well. Over time, you can see it actually gives 68% in the market. Drone actually gives 60% in the market, and so all these factors are actually very, very important that we need to understand when looking at the market moves. Very, very important that we understand all these factors when looking at the market area, when looking at how the market is moving, what are the points of info, what areas the news. Now the news also has its own parts to play when looking at the market movement, and the news actually has a bigger role to play when looking at the news factor or how the market is going, what is actually causing the movement of the market, and all these things are actually very, very important that we need to take note of, that we need to focus on when looking at the market and other. Now looking at this currently, point, you can see this area here, you can see the news and other, you can see the news movement on how the market is going, and you can see how the market is going, the movement of the market and other, you can see how the market is going, what we need to take note of the market. And then you can see now, you can see this, the price structure of Bitcoin is actually suggesting to actually break below 25,400 and other, and actually if the market actually comes down to around this area here, we're actually expecting the market to come down to around this if the market can actually break this area, we actually see the market still coming down to around 23 thereabouts in the market, 3,300 thereabouts or 600 thereabouts in the market. A kind of a regulatory delay of the approval of the sports DeFi or the sports Bitcoin ETF by SEC. Now, also the bearish outlook for this actually caused the kind of a bearish outlook for Bitcoin, because the SEC, looking at the SEC approval, looking at All this actually very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market, when looking at how to actually take control of the market. What is the market saying? What do we need to know? What do we need to take note of when looking at the market movement, when looking at what the market is saying? And all these points are actually very to understand what the market is saying, trying to take control of the market. And all these points are actually very important that we need to actually very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market movement. It is very important that it is very important that we understand all these factors. All these factors are actually very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market, when looking at the area of movement, when looking at looking into the market, or when looking at the areas of how the market is moving, what is actually causing the movement of the market. All those points of the market, and that is very important that we understand the news behind the market, the news factor. The news factor is actually another. You can see it. You can, even though you can see it, you can see that the lack. You can see now. What also we have now, the lack of favorable regulatory framework has further contributed to the extent has further contributed to the extended downside and height market volatility. So the lack of regulatory framework actually is one important factor that is actually causing this movement that we are noticing in the market and others. So it is very important that we take note. All those factors we're actually talking about are actually very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market movement, when looking at what the market is saying and other. It is very important that we understand all these basic factors when looking at the market movement, and what areas do we need to take note, how can we actually take control of the market, and all these points are actually very important that we need to the Bitcoin market is might likely actually going to retrace. You can see the market, which might actually still get to around 23,000 period on go to get to then looking at the uptrend direction. When the market come back normal, we are likely going to see the market getting up to 48 thereabouts in the market, or 30,000. Let me just say 30,000 thereabouts in the market as days goes by. So let's just see, because you can actually predict how the market is actually going to go. What that now the Bitcoin is actually experiencing the period of consideration and retracement before continuing an upward of rejection or trajectory when looking at the markets, and that is what we're actually noticing in the Bitcoin market. We're actually seeing the movement now. What we're actually seeing in the market currently. What we're actually seeing in the market currently is we're just experiencing what has actually happened before. Looking at what has actually happened before, looking at what has actually the period in the market as are actually very important that we need to take note of when looking at the market, looking at how the market is moving, what we need to take note of them and all that. So that's all what we'll be talking about in today's section. Tomorrow for another interesting conversation where we'll come together and learn a lot about the market, what we need to take note of them, how can we actually go about them.